Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? And shout out to all my Cerebralites. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I'm back with another episode of You Say What. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel, You Say What is your opportunity to chime in, to leave your 2 cents, and to be a part of the discussion that is happening here on my channel within my community of Cerebralites. Having said that, before you go another further, do yourself a favor, and while you're at it, do me a solid. Take a second to hit that subscribe button. Once you've done that, take another second to hit that tiny little bell so you can turn on your notifications, and that way you'll be kept in the loop so you won't miss a thing. So I want to talk about a sad case this morning, and this case is sad on so many levels. Like when I read the news report, when I listened to the news report about this story, it was one of those stories where I just, I literally was awestruck. And it wasn't necessarily the crime that was perpetrated. While the crime itself was a very heinous crime, it was sort of the posthumous maligning of Dee Witham in this particular case. Now, Dee Witham is a 25-year-old transgendered woman who was murdered by Dwanya Hickerson. Now, she was stabbed 119 times. Count them. Can you imagine how long it takes you to count to 119? The amount of rage that one must conjure up to stab a person 119 times is unfathomable for me. So she was in, give me just 1 second here, you guys. So she was in Mississippi for the Gulf Coast Black Rodeo, which is something I didn't even know existed. First of all, I didn't know there was a black rodeo. I'm going to have to look into that. So anyhow, the two of them met, and they obviously had chemistry. Wound up at a hotel together. Things of an intimate nature transpired between the two of them. He said there was a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs happening, and somewhere along the night, she, while digging in her purse, looked at him and said, "Hey, I was born a man." Now, listen, if you're transgendered and you're out there, I don't think that murder is defensible by any stretch of the imagination. But if you are transgendered, if you are passable, and you are meeting guys who are hetero-identified cisgendered men, and you don't feel like you're ready to disclose that fact about yourself, then I feel like you shouldn't date them. If you're not at a point where you want to, and I get it, if you don't know a person well and you don't want to necessarily disclose the fact that you're transgender to them, then you don't have to do that. That's your choice to do that on your own terms and conditions. But you also have to realize by not telling them, you're depriving that person of the opportunity to choose whether or not this is something that they want to engage in. And I think that it's only fair. It would be the same thing like a person knowingly having a sexually transmitted disease and having sex with a person and not telling them, and then saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm HIV positive." You don't do that. If you know that you have something, you give the person the information up front. You let them decide whether or not this is something that they want to take a chance with. Not that sleeping with someone who's transgender could necessarily kill you, but you have to understand if someone is not genuinely attracted to that, then they should have every right to pick and choose whether or not they engage in it. So you have every right to pick and choose what parts of yourself and your history that you share with the person. So if you're not ready to disclose, then don't take off your clothes. How about that? If you're not ready to disclose, don't take off your clothes. That's going to be the mantra. So if you can't tell a man that, then just walk away. Be friends. Don't kiss. Don't engage in an intimate nature, because a lot of men are these sort of hyper-masculine beings who take their sexual identity very seriously. And a lot of it is connected to their heterosexuality and identifying as hetero. In the moment that you do something that in their eyes somehow taints that, then bad things can happen. So for your own safety, your own well-being, if you're going to be dating men who identify as heterosexual, please be honest. And if you're not at a point where you're ready to disclose that information, then just don't date that particular person. And if you're going to date, don't engage intimately. So that's just, sort of, I guess, my PSA for this particular video. Just be honest. Be honest with people. So anyhow, Mr. Hickerson stabbed this girl, Dee Wiggum, 119 times. He slashed her throat 3 times alone. 3 times he slashed her throat. So this was overkill. And he was sentenced to 40 years, which to me, I don't think was enough time. I don't think a person who is able to conjure that much rage should ever have the opportunity to walk amongst society. That's just my personal belief. And I do believe were she not transgendered, then he probably would have gotten the life or the death penalty. But because she was transgender, it mitigated the sentencing for him. So anyhow, if it weren't enough that she was killed and stabbed, probably beyond recognition if she's stabbed 119 times and many of the wounds and lacerations were to the face, what really got me about this video is the lack of compassion from her family and the misgendering from those who were giving victim impact or family impact statements during the sentencing phase of the trial. If you listen to his mother, Mrs. Hickerson speaks, she says, we both had great sons, or we both had sons who had promising careers. I'm paraphrasing, she said something along those lines, but I was just like, wow, even in death, you guys can honor her by calling her her. You had a great son or a daughter. You could not give her the dignity of identifying her by her chosen gender, even in death. I mean, to me, that's a very small consolation, a very small consideration to give a person who's been murdered mercilessly. In addition to that, now this is what really got me. When her sister, Dee Wiggum's sister, stood up and said, I didn't agree with my quote-unquote brother's lifestyle, and I can understand why you were mad. Why are you even in court? Why did you even show up? If your brother is killed, and I'm using brother because that's the terminology, those are the pronouns that she was using. If your loved one, if your sibling, if your sister were killed in the manner that Dee was killed, and you can't find, you can't muster up an iota of compassion in that moment to fight for her dignity, just stay home. Just stay home. Don't even go. Just stay home, or sit in court and be quiet. Don't stand up and basically give a thumbs up to the person who killed your loved one that you quote unquote missed, because everything that you said essentially said that what happened to Dee, she deserved. And that blew my mind, you guys. So I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to think. So make sure you comment below.
The man who killed Dee Wiggum 1 year ago, now sentenced to 40 years in jail for her stabbing death. Dwanya Hickerson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and robbery in Jackson County Circuit Court. And that's where Mike Lacey spent today. He joins us now live in studio with details.
Hugh Hickerson, a sailor stationed at Keesler Air Force Base, was accused of killing Wiggum, a 25-year-old transgender woman, at a St. Martin hotel in July 2016. The sentence was a plea deal made through his attorneys. He graphically described that night of heavy drinking, sex, and then murder. Dwanya Hickerson stood calmly as he detailed the moments before he stabbed Dee Wiggum 119 times.
She started digging in her purse, and she told me she was born a man, and I just snapped out. I lost my mom.
But he had no hesitation in his guilty plea.
Are you pleading guilty because you're guilty and for no other reason? Yes, sir.
And then he had the opportunity to address Wiggum's family.
I'd like to apologize to the victim family. I really wish it would have turned out different, that would have happened had it happened. If I could take it back, I could.
Wiggum had been on the coast to attend the Gulf Coast Black Rodeo. On that night, surveillance video taken at the Best Western Hotel in St. Martin shows Hickerson and Wiggum walking into the hotel room together. About 23 minutes later, Hickerson was seen leaving the room alone. Both families addressed the court.
I am devastated that any of this happened for both families. Both families lost brilliant sons with careers ahead of them and young lives.
Wiggum's sister, Denisha Wiggum, and mother, Vicky Wiggum, were both devastated. but showed little anger to the killer.
I didn't approve of his lifestyle. I did not. So I can understand if what you say happened. I can understand your anger. But I miss my brother.
Attorneys for both defense and prosecution say no one won in this case.
I think it's the best result that we could come up with out of these circumstances. I honestly believe truth is the best policy, honesty is the best policy, and unfortunately, these are the results.
I think that, when we resort to violence, there's never a good ending, and that's what happened in this case. 2 families walked away from this courtroom today without their family members.
The trial was scheduled for August the 14th. Hickerson also received a consecutive sentence of 15 years for robbery in the case. Hickerson won't be eligible for parole for 35 years.
And that concludes this episode. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, and please share if you feel so inclined. Remember to follow me across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Also remember, it is better to be pissed off than it is to be pissed on. And as always, in closing, people, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. It is me, the Cerebral Diva. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. And as always, thank you for listening.